Good to see you in a new video on Betrayal Wife Tales. Today I'm going to tell you an interesting story of our subscriber.
As the story goes, I was with my girlfriend Emily for nearly 3.5 years. We had our ups and downs like any couple, but we had built something real, or so I thought. Then she betrayed me with someone I never imagined she would, someone I knew all too well, a guy named Mark. And they were sneaking around behind my back for almost 2 years. Mark and I met through a sport we were both passionate about. We clicked easily, like brothers, drawn together by shared interests. It's strange to look back now and realize that at the time I met him, I had already been dating Emily for a little over a year. I never thought anything of it. Why would I? Mark was the kind of guy who seemed harmless, a little too simple-minded maybe, but someone I trusted. Emily, though, she had a way of getting involved in everything. At first, she was just curious about my training sessions. She said she wanted to come and watch. I was happy to have her there at first, but something about it started feeling off after a while. She wasn't just there to support me. It was like she was there for someone else. I could see it in the way she looked at Mark, the way she acted differently when he was around. It was subtle, but it was there. Small shifts in her energy, things she probably thought I wouldn't notice. But I did. And looking back now, I realize how naive I was to ignore the red flags. Mark, of all people. He wasn't even someone impressive. In fact, he was probably one of the dullest, most unambitious people I'd ever met. I was the one who had built something solid in our relationship. I was loyal, reliable, and I provided her with a sense of security. But that wasn't enough. And maybe, I started to think, it was never going to be. It all started unraveling when I hit a rough patch in life. I'd quit my job, after too much mistreatment, and found myself unemployed for a couple of months. Emily must have seen it as her chance to get away with things behind my back. While I was struggling, trying to figure out my next steps, she was off, building her secret relationship with Mark. She didn't even try to hide it well. They were messaging each other constantly on social media, hanging out in secret. It turned out he would pick her up right from our house. And I had no idea. They went to the gym together, had lunch dates, went paddle boarding, watched the sunset like they were some happy couple. She even sent him intimate pictures, the kind she used to send only to me. I found out about the pictures because she was careless. She sent one to me by mistake and told me she had sent it to him too. That was my breaking point. I made it clear to her, either she cuts him off completely or we were done. Simple as that. But she didn't cut him off. Instead, she shut me out. She turned off her location tracking, ignored my calls and texts, stopped spending time with me. No more affection, no more sex, no more anything. It was like I didn't exist. She became a stranger in her own skin. I knew where this was heading, but part of me didn't want to believe it. Then came the night that shattered everything. I was out helping coach a group of kids when Emily sent me a text. "I'm going out with Mark. I'll be home before you finish." I didn't think too much of it at the time. But when I got home around 7, her car was still in the driveway, but she wasn't there. He had picked her up again. The same thing had happened the night before, and I was clueless. I stayed up that night waiting, ready to end things the moment she walked through the door. But she never came home. At 11:30 p.m., she finally texted, "We need to talk." I knew what was coming. I asked her not to break up with me over a text message, but that didn't stop her. She didn't care. And while I was leaving our house to clear my head, she and Mark were already at my old place, spending the night together. He had the audacity to claim he was protecting her from me, as if I had ever laid a hand on her or anyone else. I'm a police officer, for God's sake. I've never hurt anyone. I don't do drugs, and I rarely drink. But there they were, spending the night together while I was left alone in the wreckage of what we had. Mark even had the nerve to say he slept on the couch. Sure, I believed that. For 6 months, they were lying to my face, playing me for a fool. 3 weeks after we officially broke up, they were already parading around as a couple, posting about their new love on social media, flaunting it. I blocked them both long before, but mutual friends couldn't help but tell me. I've since told those friends to stop updating me. I don't need to know anymore. Mark even tried to get me to unblock him, asking friends to reach out on his behalf. He claimed he wanted to clear the air, to make things right. But when we're at training, he won't even look at me. He can't stand to be in the same room alone with me. Coward. Emily was gone long before she finally ended things, but the hardest part is that she kept pretending. She would say over and over that she wanted to fix things, to work on our relationship. But when I told her she needed to stop seeing Mark, she would turn it around on me. I was insecure, I was overreacting. I never let her have any friends. Classic, narcissistic behavior. I guess what I'm still trying to figure out is why she put me through an entire year of hell. If she had already checked out, why not leave? Why torture me with lies and false hope when all she wanted was to be with someone else? Why not just walk away a year ago to be with that piece of garbage? At the end of it all, I asked her for something I thought was reasonable. Closure. After spending 3.5 years together, the least we could do was say goodbye face to face, right? It felt like a simple request after everything that had happened. But she ignored me, dodging my messages for 2 whole days. When she finally did respond, she said she was afraid. Afraid I would hurt her, afraid I'd yell. I couldn't believe it. Hurt her? Yell? I had never in my entire life so much as raised my voice to anyone I cared about. That's just not who I am, and she knew it. But the more she avoided me, the clearer it became that she was hiding behind her excuses. It was easier for her to paint me as some kind of threat rather than face the mess she had created. After days of her dodging me, I finally reached my breaking point. I told her, "Meet me at the park at exactly 7 p.m. If you don't show up, I'm done. I'm leaving, and I'm blocking you on everything." I wasn't going to let her string me along any longer. She didn't respond, so I went to the park anyway, arriving early at 6:30. I sat there, my mind racing, trying to sort through all the emotions swirling around inside me. I kept hoping, against my better judgment, that she would show up. But as the minutes ticked by, that hope faded. When the clock hit 7, I knew I was done. I sent her a message. "I waited for 30 minutes and you didn't show up. I'm putting the spare keys in the mailbox. Goodbye." And then, just like that, she started blowing up my phone. Suddenly, she had something to say. "You said around 7, not on 7, she texted, as if those extra few minutes changed anything, as if she hadn't been avoiding me for days. I told her to reread what I had sent her. Then, without waiting for a response, I blocked her on everything. It was over. The whole situation with Mark, God, it still eats at me. I had known him for 2 years through our training. I had welcomed him into my home, introduced him to my life. We had shared drinks, gone out, laughed like friends. I thought he was someone I could trust, but he had wormed his way into everything, into my relationship, and I hadn't seen it coming. Or maybe I had. Maybe deep down, I always knew something was off. Looking back now, I know I should have seen the signs with Emily. She was a narcissist, plain and simple. But I was too blind to notice, too caught up in trying to make things work. Still, part of me had always known. Watching the way she interacted with Mark, there was this nagging feeling in the back of my mind that told me something was going to happen between them. I just didn't want to believe it. I'm not going to lie. I feel like I've been torn apart. It's been only a month since everything came crashing down, and the pain is still fresh. People keep telling me I'll be fine without her, that I'll get through this. And yeah, I know I will. But right now, it sucks. Never in a million years would I have dreamed of doing something like this to anyone. The betrayal cuts deep. And now Mark, he's spreading lies about me, telling anyone who will listen that I used to beat Emily and that I have a drinking problem. It's laughable, really, because he doesn't even have the courage to say any of it to my face. Every time we're at training, he avoids me like the plague. Won't even make eye contact. He's terrified to be in the same room with me. Sure, Emily's the bigger part of the problem here, 90% of it, no doubt. But Mark? He's not innocent. He's that slimy 10% who slid into my life pretending to be a friend while stabbing me in the back the whole time. It's mind-blowing how people like them can act so casually about destroying someone else's life. I've got more details if you want them, but right now I just need to know why. Why didn't she break it off sooner? Why string me along, making me question everything, when it would have been so easy for her to leave? Why couldn't she respect one simple boundary? To just drop one person, to let go of Mark, so we could work on us? Why did she shut me out, both mentally and physically, for so long? Why make me feel like I was the one doing everything wrong, like I was worthless and incapable of doing a single thing right? Why make the one person you're supposed to love feel like the absolute worst version of themselves?
Good to see you in a new video on Betrayal Wife Tales. Today I'm going to tell you an interesting story of our subscriber.
Hey everyone. Yeah, you heard that right. My girlfriend cheated on me, even though I was doing everything I could to build a future for us. We had been together for about 5 years. Sure, we had our ups and downs, but nothing I thought was too serious. But let me take you back to the beginning, so you can get a better idea of what went wrong. If any of you have some insight on whether I was in the wrong or if she was, feel free to be brutally honest. I'm ready for it. At the time, I was living about 4 or 5 hours away from her. We had matched on a dating app while I was visiting her city. She messaged me a couple of months later, and from there, things just took off. We eventually decided to meet up for a weekend. We slept together, but we didn't have any deep conversation about where things were going. No talks of romance or becoming a couple. We just kept chatting like before. 2 days after I got home from that weekend, I slept with another girl. Yeah, I know, not exactly my proudest moment. The other girl was a friend I'd had a casual thing with years ago, but we hadn't seen each other in a long time. When I was back with my girlfriend, that same girl messaged me, just asking how I was doing, and I told my girlfriend that she was just an old friend. Technically, that was true. But it didn't take long for her to dig around, and she ended up messaging the girl. And of course, the girl told her that we had slept together. My girlfriend went ballistic, accusing me of all sorts of things. Things started getting weird after that. One night, while I was out with some friends, my girlfriend told me she was going out too. But she didn't say where or with who, which was strange because she usually told me those details. I was already feeling suspicious, so I reached out to her friend, Emily, who told me she wasn't with her and that my girlfriend had asked her to cover for her. That set off major alarm bells, but for some reason, I didn't push it. I wanted to trust her. But just recently, I found out that she had actually slept with another guy back then, even though she denied it for years. All this time, she had been throwing the whole friends with benefits situation in my face, tearing me apart over it, and it turns out she was probably guilty the entire time. Maybe that's why she kept harping on it. Out of guilt? In the beginning of our relationship, she broke up with me twice, just to test if I cared enough. Both times, it destroyed me. I cried for hours, shattered into a million pieces. And then she'd turn everything around, making it seem like I was the problem. Once, she even lied about being pregnant just to see if I'd stick around. I found out because I reverse-searched the photo she sent me. It wasn't even hers. Despite all this, I kept trying to do nice things for her. I'd bring her flowers, get her chocolates, plan little weekend getaways. But her reaction, every single time she'd say, "That's so lame," without even thanking me. One time I came home early from work, made the bed with rose petals, set out chocolates, all the romantic stuff. She walked right past me, got into bed, and told me she was going to sleep. Nothing I did seemed to matter. Whenever we had a disagreement, she wouldn't talk to me directly. Instead, she'd post cryptic messages on social media, airing out our issues for everyone to see. I tried everything to get her to talk, calling, texting, sitting in the dark just to create a safe space for conversation. But she always had an excuse. 5 years into this roller coaster, she told me she didn't love me anymore. She was seeing someone else, talking to someone new, and then she broke up with me. I tried moving on, met a new girl on a dating site, and we took things slow. Didn't even sleep together until the 5th date because honestly, I wasn't ready. But she was incredible. I hadn't felt that kind of warmth in years. She made me feel like I was coming home whenever she hugged me. She was kind, loving, and selfless in ways I had forgotten were possible. But just when I thought I was moving forward, my ex texted me, and like a fool, I broke it off with the new girl and started talking to my ex again. She asked if I had been with anyone while we were apart, and I lied. I told her no. She claimed she hadn't either, and said she would have told me if she had because she's honest. I later found out that she had been on dating sites the whole time, even while we were supposedly working things out. She had slept with someone, but what really got to me was how she kept hammering on about her honesty while she was living a double life. Still, I kept trying to make things work. I had to leave the country for work for a couple of months, and we tried to rebuild while I was away. I told her about the girl I had briefly seen, and my ex went off the rails, claiming we were still in a relationship during that time. Except we weren't. She had said she didn't love me and was seeing someone else. One time while I was overseas, I called her, and I heard her laughing with someone in the background. They were shushing each other, and there was even moaning. She denied everything, of course, but I knew what I had heard. Still, somehow, we decided to give it one last shot. About 6 months ago, we agreed to try again and work things through. But here's the thing. I had taken a job that required me to work abroad, 2 weeks on and 1 week off. I'd come home to see her during my time off, and I'd visit my family too. One day, she told me she had gone off the pill because she wanted to start a family. I was over the moon. If there was one thing I had always wanted in life, it was to be a dad. Fast forward to about 3 months ago, I saw something that hit me hard. She posted a story on Instagram that said something about how she loved when a guy rides a bike and has pretty eyes. I don't ride a bike, so naturally I asked her about it. She brushed it off, saying it was just something she liked, but deep down, my gut told me something was off. Eventually, I found out the truth. She was sleeping with her brother's friend. And all this while she was supposedly off the pill, which had me spiraling. I had no idea what could have happened, and when I confronted her about it, she called me delusional, an idiot, and worse. The gaslighting was so strong I almost believed I was imagining everything. As time went on, the red flags piled up. She stopped texting me in the morning, wouldn't say goodnight, and our conversations went from warm and full of energy to cold, distant, and almost robotic. It felt like she was a million miles away, emotionally checked out. I would pour my heart into our texts, into trying to keep things alive, and in return, I got the cold shoulder, every single time. By September, it had gotten so bad that when I'd ask her where she was, all she would say was, "I'm out," without any details. Hours would go by with no word from her. My gut told me something was seriously wrong. Then one night, she casually dropped the bomb that she was talking to someone. A few days later, it was her birthday. She got mad at me, asking why I hadn't posted anything on Facebook about her. Like, why didn't you say happy birthday to my amazing girlfriend or something like that? I didn't even know how to respond. I told her, "You literally just said you're talking to someone else." She then tried to brush it off, saying the guy was gay and that he was just listening to her problems. But I asked her, "Why couldn't you talk to me about it then?" She had no answer. Instead, she would finish work, ignore my texts, and not respond for hours, sometimes until the early morning. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being played. But whenever I brought it up, she'd just call me delusional and act like I was crazy for even thinking that way. Finally, she broke up with me, and the truth came spilling out. Around that time, she reached out again, saying she was pregnant. Then, just as quickly, she blocked me on everything. Phone, social media, everything. I tried desperately to get her to talk to me, and when she finally did, she told me she was keeping the baby and that I would never see it. I reverse-searched the image she sent me of the pregnancy test and confronted her when we met in person. She admitted it was all a lie. She just wanted to see how I would react, to see if I even cared. But she kept up the lie, insisting she had been pregnant just to keep me hooked in her twisted game. Then she confessed the most painful thing of all. She had slept with her brother's friend to get back at me. She was seeing this new guy while we were still together, but she claimed it wasn't serious at first. She said she cheated out of spite, and when I asked her why, she didn't even have a real answer. She admitted she had been with her brother's friend too, all to hurt me. And I was left standing there, completely broken, wondering why she would do any of this. I remember asking her why she was calling me a narcissist, why she thought I was this terrible person she claimed I was. But she couldn't give me a real reason, just that I was. It was like she was reaching for any excuse to justify her actions. Then she said something that really twisted the knife. She told me none of this would have happened if I had just put a ring on her finger, as if all this betrayal, all the lies, were somehow my fault because I hadn't proposed. Then she had the nerve to send me a TikTok about why women cheat. The video talked about how women cheat for validation, and she told me this new guy had called her pretty. I couldn't believe it. I had been calling her beautiful every single day, reminding her how much she meant to me. And still, she chose someone else to fill some void I didn't even know existed. When I brought it up, she said things like, "What did you expect after what you did?" But I still don't understand what I did that was so wrong. I was loyal to her even after everything she put me through. And don't even get me started on her friends. They're a nightmare, a reflection of her, really. All of them are bad news. They cheat on their boyfriends like it's a game. They lie about being pregnant. They manipulate, and they think it's all some sort of power move. One of her friends is just the most disgusting human being I've ever encountered. It's no surprise that her circle is just as toxic as she is now. At the end of the day, it feels like her only weapon against me was sex. She could never show real emotion, never tell me what she was truly feeling. All she knew was how to hurt me, over and over again, with her lies, her cheating, and her games. And I'm still left here wondering, was she ever hurting too? Or did she do all of this just because she could?